Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hey everyone, welcome to the discussion for Ark Nova, which is a game that I heard nothing about this game, like all of last year, until all of a sudden everyone's top 10s were coming out, and then they were like, this is the best game ever! And I'm like, what game is this?
I think it's because it wasn't readily available. It still isn't readily available.
It still isn't readily available. This, I am actively considering a 2022 game. Mm-hmm. I know it was on a lot of people's 2021s, but yay, they're special.
You gotta go to a con at the end of the year in order to get it.
Yeah,
or something.
Exactly. So, so if you have heard the hype of this game, does it live up to that? I think it does. Yeah. I think this game is very, very good. But to squash anything of people going, this is a Terraforming Mars killer, there's always a game that does that. Mm-hmm. Like when Deception Murder in Hong Kong, Mysterium Killer, I'm like, they're nothing alike. Yeah. No, I do not think that this is, this doesn't replace Terraforming Mars. Right. At least for me. I do very much see the similarities of why people would immediately compare it to that, but I think it's because Terraforming Mars does have the expansions and the longevity that, I think if they base to base came out the same year, then it would be more of a discussion, but if you're wondering if you have to throw out your Terraforming Mars big box, take a shit in it, and burn it, no, you don't. But should you get this game? Absolutely. I think this is a very, very good game with with an amazing theme, and one where it does like that, the art that is actual real art, but it works here. Mm-hmm. Most of the time it's very awful, but this one I genuinely enjoy because it's relatable. We've seen these animals. We know they exist, and whenever it says they're endangered or near extinction, it's very depressing. Because it's a very real world thing. Mm-hmm. So as typical for discussions, let's talk about negatives. Do you have any negatives on the game?
There's only two things that I can think of.
Yeah, I have one, but I might be able to agree with some of yours.
And this is a thing for me that happens occasionally with some games. The iconography confuses the fuck out of me with reading things. And part of that's the way that my brain processes things is in a weird fucking way. I hate that I have it, but I had the consistent problem of seeing this. I think maybe if I read through the rule book and I played this a couple more times, I think it would go away. Yeah. But some of the ticket symbol to me, and I see that that's a ticket, but I was looking and thinking that was the ticket track, but the tickets are right in front of me, so why was I thinking that? There's a lot of clutter on the cards, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that just comes with the territory of playing it. Like, I don't like that this is connected. I mean, again, that's probably
it's definitely
thing that has to be ironed out with playing it.
Right. I don't know if it's colorblind friendly. I'm not colorblind, so I don't know, but it's not immediately apparent that these are the conditions you need. You need a level 1 habitat, or at least, and that's how much it costs, but then these are things you absolutely need to be able to play it. And they're red, which I can see, so I clearly can make it out, but I can definitely see someone trying to set out their turn and then miss one thing, and that one thing completely derails the entire turn.
Yeah, if in comparison to Terraforming Mars, I think that there's more icons in this, but maybe I'm completely wrong. I'm not really sure.
Overall, no, I think they're about the same, actually, because you have the requirements of heat or water or whatever, and then you also have the icons that it gives you for set collection purposes. I think they're actually pretty much around the same.
That actually reminds me of another negative. The other negative, I'm probably going to forget the other one, what it was. I'm blanking on it.
Well, to bounce off of your iconography thing, this is something that every company immediately, it's extremely frustrating to do. You make a game for 1 to 4 players. You need to provide fucking sheets. If you're making an icon overview sheet, you need to offer one for every player.
Yeah, this is a board gamer's board game, and with people playing 100 games in a year, you can't remember all the little symbols.
No, exactly.
I'm an old man. I can't remember all the little things on there.
And to be fair, I personally don't have an issue with the icons, but I still think it's extremely frustrating, and everyone's gonna be like, you can print off your own. I paid you fucking $80 for your game. Give me 4 fucking things to play your game. this game is already long. Like, it is a long game. There's a reason why we did it as a 2-player game, because it doesn't warrant 4 players. I would even say it doesn't warrant 3 players. But, not that it'd be bad with those amount, but I'm like, I'm not doing a 4-hour run-through. Yeah. I'm not waiting, because there's very little discussion and interaction between players. I think we only ever had the one where you took money from me.
Yeah.
But, where it's like, no one's talking to each other, everyone's trying to think of what they're going to do, and the last thing I want to do is have to wait for 3 other people as we pass this freaking thing around, and be like, oh, what is this icon? Oh, yeah. It's like, if I know it, I could easily tell you, but what if it's part of their strategy for whatever reason? What if they're trying to take the only available 4 spot of birds, and then it's like, yep, here you go. It's so stupid. This bugs me probably more than it should, but it's 2022.
And it's not just with this game; it's a bigger problem in all of board games.
It is, yes. And I bring it up every time.
I think it's the problem that divides the designer with being comfortable with the game, and then you have to constantly think of a basic person coming in and playing the game, and like you get used to testing a game over and over and over again.
Right.
You forget about that.
No, exactly.
On that note, my other negative, I only see the point in aviaries, reptile houses, and petting zoos if you happen to already have those animals. You cannot.
Sure.
You cannot have one in your hand, build one, and then just hope to get one. In my opinion, that's a little like iffy as far as just building them, because you have to invest so much money in putting them on your map, and then that could go. It's somewhat rewarding, but it's also somewhat of a waste. I think they could have been streamlined slightly. Like I built a petting zoo and I saw, 8 petting zoo animals last game, and I kind of kept an eye out for one. I haven't seen any since then.
I think there were a few that I happened to see that I discarded because I didn't have a petting zoo.
Yeah.
I see where you're coming from. I do like the fact that those exist, because that makes thematic sense. You go to bird houses, you see a bunch of birds. You go to reptile houses, you see a bunch of reptiles.
Right.
I like the versatility you could be like, well, like if I only ever drew the king vulture, it's a level 3 habitat or whatever enclosure or 1 spot in the aviary. It's like, okay, I'll build the level 3. But then let's say you do start getting more birds, and you're like, okay, now it kind of warrants me to invest in that.
Yeah.
And I like the fact that you can then consolidate them. You can be like, okay, hey, new aviary, and then thematically you like house them and you move them all over.
Yeah.
Then that frees up the rest of those to be like, oh, hey, now this level 3 can go towards, this leaf monkey.
Right.
I like the fact that it's not permanent. That would be extremely annoying if, like, once they're there, they're there. But
and it's a little bit different with the aviaries and the reptile houses. You always have the option of building those. If you have a petting zoo, you have to build them in a petting zoo.
That is true. Yes, and you can only ever have 1 petting zoo in your zoo.
Yeah.
You can only ever have 1. And does it have the cube spots on it?
Yes.
It does.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, because I saw the squares for the aviaries and the reptile house, I haven't had a petting zoo since I've played this, but I assumed you only get 1, but they could all fit. I guess that's not the case. And there are some animals that do that. A lot of herbivores, like the deer, they can actually be shared. You only need 1 level 3 to put them all in. So, because space is such a big issue, or a big deal in this game, not as big as like in Feast for Odin or things like that, but it is spatial awareness, polyominoes, which I love. I love that that's in this game. It's so cool. But I also like the fact that it's not like you expand too quickly and then you're just not playing anything. You do have ways to consolidate. You do have ways to release, to free things up, all thematically tied, because they did say they tried their best to make it thematic, which I do think they did.
Right.
So I personally don't have a problem with the aviaries, but I see where you're coming from. Yes, it's not worth ever building unless you are going to get those cards.
Yeah.
To kind of bounce off of that, this isn't a negative, but it is something to consider. In the games that we have played, I found the game easier to play. Not saying this is the way to win. I found it easier if your zoo has a theme. And that might just be... I mean, that works for Terraforming Mars as well. If you have an engine, you follow the engine. Last game was small animals. I happened to get the small animal expert, and then some of that benefited me. And then I also got the end game thing for small animals. So I had a small animal kind of zoo. This one, which wasn't even my goal at all, it just kind of happened to go that way. It wasn't even based off reputation, but it ended up being birds. And because I got the vulture thing, which was about birds, and then so it was kind of a 1-2 punch. I got the side entrance, and I was like, oh, that's 5 appeal if you completely max it out. Oh, that's 7 if you do that. So my entire goal was fill up my park, and then I happened to get birds, and then I saw birds were here. So maybe that's just coincidence. I don't know if that's actually something that everyone's done.
Right.
I just like doing that for like spatial awareness games, having a theme like Suburbia, having a theme with your suburb.
Right.
It's more fun to play, I think. But I have noticed that. I don't know if you can just completely try everything, and if that works. I don't know. You can just have a zoo of everything, or if consolidating and making like a focus, if that's kind of easier to do.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily a negative. That's just kind of an observation.
Right.
My negative actually really has nothing to do with the game, the gameplay. So, Terraforming Mars came out when 2016, something like that.
I'm not sure. I wasn't.
It might have been earlier. I'd have to look it up. Came out a while ago. Took the world by storm. But it always had one negative. It was the way the production value and the art was garbage.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm going to look it up when Terraforming Mars came out. Terraforming Mars, 2016. Okay, so it's been 6 years since it came out. So 6 years later, we get a new game that is very similar to that, and it's still shitty production.
Yeah.
Not the cards, the art, like I said, is amazing. However, the coins look like crap. The player boards are paper. I mean, essentially, they're very thin cardboard. And, I mean, these component trays, they're whatever. At least they exist.
Yeah.
But it's just so, dated. I mean, this long board, I mean, it's fine. It's really just a house, to have a central kind of area. Mm-hmm. My biggest thing is the fact that, well, the money tokens just are stupid. They look like shit. But the fact that the maps are different, which I love the fact that there's different maps, different special abilities, that's really cool. But why is this not dual layered? Dear God, if you're gonna make a game, make a dual layered board. Was it because it wasn't a Kickstarter game?
I'm sure it's because the price point would have raised and they wanted to keep it manageable.
It was like $80.
So there's a lot of cards in it.
There are a lot of cards, yeah, and the
cards are cheap, but they're they're
maybe
thin.
they paid a bunch for.
They're not the thinnest I've seen. I was playing with Gloomhaven last night. Those are some thin fucking cards.
Right. Yeah. That's not even all of them. There's actually one more deck that I didn't see because I was like, well, there's no reason to have all of them out.
Oh, really? Is it a completely different play deck or?
No. It's just you shuffle all the cards together. But I was like, there's no reason because last time we played, we didn't go through all of them.
That's where all the petting animals were.
Maybe, but that is one of the things. There are a lot of cards.
Right.
But yeah, I wish these were dual layered. You could have easily done, where your cubes can sit, this is wasted space. That notepad is dumb as hell.
Yeah.
You could have inserts for your people, for your universities, and then do what Calico did, have at least a dual layered edge.
Yeah.
So, you don't actually go, oh God. How the, I mean, that happened to both of us multiple times where, I dropped something and then it's like, crap, where were those? Because placement is important.
Right.
That's my biggest complaint, is actually component-wise.
And I'm sure that'll be remedied in 2 months. I mean, there'll be people on Etsy selling it. And you have
That's
to pay
true.
$95 for a piece of wood.
No, it's going to be the plastic things. Broken Token's going to make the little plastic sheets that you cover. Terraforming Mars had that. Yeah. Before they wisened up and made a Kickstarter expansion to have the dual-layered boards.
I do think this, if we're going to compare it to Terraforming Mars, which we're trying not to.
We really are. It's like,
this is a long game, and this game is a little bit longer than it needs to be, especially for 2 players.
I would agree.
By 30 minutes. And I will say, I took a lot of time thinking. I ran into 3 combos where I was like, and I'm ready to, and I can't do it.
Right.
Which was an iconography problem, and that's a problem with me learning the game. I didn't have that as much of a problem. I did have it a couple times in the first game, but I had it even more in this game. I think it's still... We're playing with 2 players, and if you added a third person, it's only going to be longer.
I know.
This is... You could play Feast for Odin with 4 players in the amount of time that we took.
No, I agree. And, yeah, probably about a 30-minute cutoff time, which once again, if you're playing this a lot, which unfortunately for the channel and stuff, I don't play games like 10 times. You can be very quick. Like, the action selection of this game, I really enjoy. I like the fact that you have kind of this river of actions. Gives you a lot to think about, and like how strong they are. It's like, man, I could do a build. No, I'll do this action first so I can bump up build first so I can save my railroad. Or if you have them available, you can be like, oh, I'm going to do a build and spend these to make it stronger.
Yeah.
I like that. You have a lot of freedom. The randomness of this is more of just a small puzzle. I don't think it's detrimental to a strategy at all. At least it never came up for me. Like, the strategy came from the order of cards I happen to have in my hands. Yeah. And I'm like, I need to do these very specific things. And it's not that these are in the wrong spot, it's that it's just going to take a long time anyway.
Yeah.
Terraforming Mars has that exact same thing, too. My personal strategy in both of these games has been when you're drafting your opening cards, I always pick one card that is like, I can't do this for a while, but it's something that I build up to.
Right.
And funny enough, it wasn't even part of my theme. I have a bunch of birds and a tiger in my zoo. But the fact is that, yes, it is really long. I think the turn orders are very fluid. Like, it's not like, oh, but you have 3 actions. You can do this, this, and this. It's 1 action, go. 1 action, go. 1 action, go. So I think it's streamlined. I do just think it takes a long time to get to that rhythm.
It can be very crunchy as far as like, well, I can do 2 things with this card, 2 things with this card, 2 things with this card, 2 things with this card. And if you're playing a 2-player game and your opponent is like, I already know what I'm going to do, then that's what we constantly ran into, is like, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out, but there was some times where I took like a solid 5 minutes to figure out what I was doing.
Right. I mean, which I never really care. Like, the only time I ever care if anyone takes a long turn is if I know they actively were not paying attention. If they're if they're like, oh, is it my turn? Oh, what do I got? It's like, get the fuck out of my house. Yeah. But if people are like actually thinking and they're like trying to find, and then it's their turn and they're like, oh, okay, and then but they were already thinking, then I don't care. I don't care how long.
And I don't know why people don't compare this to Feast for Odin also, because I feel like this shares the same genes as it does.
It's not worker placement.
Well, I mean, there's those workers, but not
I guess.
Right, but a little bit of this polyomino and getting rewards and strategically placing things in certain areas, or around different like water or rocks. That part reminds me of it.
This is basically because you get rewards in Terraforming Mars as well. So it's just, here's the thing that I like about.
But they're usually victory points and not resources.
No, there's like titanium and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, I guess that's true.
And then money, depending on how you place it.
That's true.
It's more, instead of a shared board, you have your own personal one, which this, I actually think, because Terraforming Mars is also a long game, and that is also, it's long dependent on the players. Because the players in that one, it's like, okay, I have nothing in my arsenal right now that is going to increase oxygen. I can increase water, or I can do whatever else, but I can't do energy or anything. So hopefully someone else can do that, because the game doesn't end until all those criteria are met.
Right.
What's great about this game is you can suck ass like the entire time, and if someone else is doing well, the game's going to end.
Yeah.
It does take a while to get appeal because it's, based off points, but that jumps higher. And then the conservation points are hard, like they're very short, but then once you hit 10, then it starts jumping.
Yeah.
So I like that this game is based off of, like, one player can end the game versus the entire table having to agree, hey, can we please stop playing? It's been 3 hours. But you're right. As a 2-player game, this is still relatively long. I mean, but I think it can go down. Like, I think it was about 2 hours.
Yeah.
Like, total for our run-through.
Yeah.
But I was engaged the entire time. Like, there was never a point where I was like, oh, can we end it?
Right.
Like, I was like, oh man, I can do this, I can do this. Oh man, I have these birds in my hand, I can add them to my aviary. And then I'm looking and I was like, oh, wait a minute, I think I might be able to end it.
Yeah.
Like, if I get 5. So, I think this game is extremely, extremely balanced. Like, this isn't one of those where it's like Lost Ruins of Arnak, where it's like, oh, if you don't go on the research track and someone else is, you're not going to do well. Yeah. Like, our first game we played, I actively avoided people, and and universities, I think I ended up getting 1. But in this one, I got like no partnerships.
Yeah.
Like I did the university thing, and then I had all my people because I was trying to go for the conservation things.
Right.
There are a lot of avenues to victory, I think, and then the dual track meeting is similar to other games, but this final scoring is very weird.
Yeah. True.
So yeah, the personal like layout is really nice. I like the different player powers because they're very small. Like yours was just, hey, build around this lake, you get more money.
Right.
Mine was discard a card to get 3 money, but I can only do it once.
That is another thing, and I won't pile on. I really like this game. I think it's a great game. I have noticed that the blue cards. What are the blue cards called? Sponsorships. There are some sponsorships that are just not good for a 5-cost sponsorship. I've seen plenty of them. Like each time you play a primate icon in your zoo, gain 1 X token. That's okay, but you have to put down a token, and it'll take up space, and you don't get any points for that. Right. Maybe it's good in the course of the game. Maybe I just haven't figured it out. But there's things
I think sponsorships are situational more than anything.
I see.
That's my theory.
Like the water card that I have, or it's the rock card. For each space you cover that is next to a rock, gain 1. Over the course of the game, that's the first card that I played, but I probably gained well over 20 money from that, like over the course of the game. Probably over 30, honestly.
Yeah.
And then I also got a victory condition that gave me 1 conservation at the end of the game. I kept on seeing those 5-cost cards, and I was like, oh, that's going to be good. And then I look at it, and there are some that are really great.
Yeah.
And then there's some that are just I don't understand what.
I think it's versatility, like because what they want to do is you have, I mean, how many cards like in the game? You have 212 cards in the game, and instead of making 212 cards synergize with every single other card, they probably were just like sponsorships is like, oh, this is perfect for me now, but next game it might suck.
Right.
Like, for example, if I didn't have birds, my sponsorship vultures sucks ass.
Right.
In fact, the meerkat den and the aerial cableway, so the side entrance was the first thing I played, and then it gave me 5 appeal for finishing on my map. Well, I didn't have a lot of animals. I had a lot of birds, but they were going in my aviary. So I took the cableway, the meerkat den, and the zoo school because they gave me extra things, and that helped me fill out my map.
Gotcha.
I didn't get shit from them. Like, in fact, it was theoretically a wasted action because I didn't have 6 rocks, so that didn't give me a point. Didn't have 6 herbivores, that didn't give me a point. I didn't play any rocks, and I didn't play any herbivores to even get the appeal for those. I literally only played them because they covered up my map.
Right.
So, in another game, if your opening hand is herbivores and you get the meerkat den, and it's like, oh man, this is amazing.
Right.
So, the only thing I played that was actually worth it were, well, the zoo school was good because it gave me reputation, which I needed, and conservation. But the vultures got me 5 points, and the Technology Institute was a nothing card. But it got me 1 point at the end. And I like that. I like the fact that each game you play, you can draw a card that was useless to you in one game, but then all of a sudden you're just like, huh, that's amazing. And I like the fact that you have variety in terms of what conservation cards. I also like the fact that these aren't the only ones in the game. Like, it's not just luck of the draw with these.
Yeah.
Where it's like, great, okay, I don't have a single Europe icon, and then you have 5 in your hand, and you're like, oh, it might be annoying, but you have a different, like, I would have a different thing.
Right.
And they have those conservation cards throughout the running deck.
Right.
And it could be like, and when you play it more, because the first time we played, I was like, I saw some conservations, and I'm like, they have to have one for small animals. And then and that's what I was just topping the deck trying to find it, and then I did, and I was like, oh, okay. Just because, why wouldn't they? They have one for everything else. They probably have ones for small animals. So, so I think the versatility, every card, while not being beneficial in one game, will be in another one.
Yeah.
And I like that. Terraforming Mars does the exact same thing. There's a lot of cards in there where you're just like, what the fuck is this for?
Right.
But then you'll get an engine, and you're like, oh, didn't even see how helpful this was.
Right.
So I like that. I think this game will only get better with expansions. $100 says that they will make their expansion will include water, like an aquarium, like and shit like that. Because like, why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
That always seems to be every animal game. It's just like, oh, here's all the land ones, and Pearlbrook and Everdell. It's like, oh, here's the water ones now, and then Meadows. Their next one is water.
I think
Wingspan, they can't really do it.
on the note of it being too long, if they had like a kick, I mean, if they're going to compare Terraforming Mars, they might as well copy them in some other aspects. Not that they're copying them, but
right.
If they had a prelude like expansion to this, I think it would be helpful.
Yeah, kind of like a jump start to kind of.
Yeah,
I think that's what
you get gold at the beginning of the round, but something like you can play a card, or This isn't a solid resource-based game, so it would be quite a bit different than Terraforming Mars.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's something that they could do as far as that goes.
Oh, without a doubt. Just kind of to kickstart, like, not necessarily what you're going for, but at least to give you some little bump to your engine.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. In terms of what I want from them, I would love to see, I mean, the partnerships are kind of what they are. They're a way to make things cheaper, which I like, and then requirements. I think different universities would be cool, like special abilities, instead of being like, okay, well, it's always those three, and you always go get those three. You might not, because you might not have any cards that need them. It's like, oh, I don't need research icons,
right,
so I'll never get that. But you might just grab it just so you can get your points.
Yeah.
Just pretty much anything that prevents you from having to do the same thing every single game, like, is always going to be nice. I think, of course, new animals, like, it's going to be aquarium, without a doubt. That's the only thing that makes sense.
Yeah.
Maybe different habitats, because right now it's like the aviary and the reptile house are specialized. I mean, but you could get, I don't see, granted I haven't looked at every single card, I don't see polar bears. I don't see anything that requires, snow or night or stuff like that. I think your idea, though, of a prelude kind of thing would be the best one for them to do.
Yeah.
And there's no way, like, with how many people are clamoring to get this game, that they're not going to do it.
And it would add to the theme if you had, like, the Chicago Zoo, and like the Chicago Zoo gives you such and such, or gives you a money engine because there's a lot of guests in the Chicago Zoo.
Yeah,
or whatever.
Yeah, something that's like that's specialized to you.
Yeah.
But in terms of how the game like plays, I think it might be like cleaner of a game. I mean, granted, it's been 6 years from the other game that everyone's comparing this to, so it only makes sense for it to at least be somewhat streamlined.
Yeah.
Because, like, I feel like I can come back to this and be like, oh, yeah, okay. But it took, like, a year off of Terraforming Mars, and I was like, you guys have to re-teach me on everything.
Yeah.
Before halfway through the game, I'm like, oh, now I remember.
Right.
What I also like is I enjoy the break track. Like, I like the fact that is player-based, and you could bum rush it and be like, hey, that's my turn, but I'm going to get a bunch of money, and you could... I mean, that's kind of really the only player interaction, because if you're like, oh, man, because he's going for birds. Oh, there's a bunch of birds up here, and so you could actually rush it to then cause those birds to go away.
Right.
And you could be like, oh, I have all my people up here. He doesn't. I'm going to rush the break to pull all my people back, because otherwise, if he gets his people back, then it's now cheaper for him.
Yeah.
Because to go to the same location, you have to spend 2. But that's your cap, going to the same area.
Right.
So, there is that. They have... I don't know why they added this. This is very strange. They did add Venom and Hypnosis and Pilfering and Constriction abilities. That's the Take That effect in this game. Which, once again, feels like shouldn't be in this game. Why does me putting a...
It's fine that it is, just make them all red cards. Like, I see it as just not... overcomplicate it anymore, and
Yeah.
let's make it one generic thing. Like, you just say on the card what it does, and then
Right.
I don't know.
It's just weird though, because it's like, okay, I'm gonna put this cobra in my zoo. Hey, zoo in the other side of the world, you're getting bit. It's like, what? Like, we're not making the same zoo.
They wanted some player interaction, I guess.
That is literally it. That's the only part that it's like. It would make more sense if like, if those cards that had those were really good for you to have, but you had to take a negative.
Yeah.
Like, for example, the constriction is, like, you take those tokens and you place them on two of your opponents,
right,
and it makes them 2 strength weaker.
Right.
It's like, what if that affected you, but the card that gave that to you, like, was like 15 appeal or something.
Right.
It's like, I don't know. It's just very weird. That part doesn't... It makes thematic sense that those animals have those, but why it affects someone else is kind of stupid.
It seems like a placeholder for, again, just an aggressive card.
Yeah. But other than that, like, what I'm going to say is if you love Terraforming Mars and you're like, oh, but I don't want to get rid of it. Well, firstly, you never have to. You could very much get this game. In fact, you might jump into it a little bit easier just because you do have the familiarity, but it doesn't replace it. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have either, that's your call. Do you like zoos or do you like space?
Yeah.
Personally, I would actually...
Does this have a solo variant?
It does.
Oh, okay.
It does, and I will most likely be doing it for the channel,
Gotcha.
just to see what it's about. Because I do like the solo for Terraforming Mars. It's kind of just a beat your own score kind of thing. But yeah, like, if both of these came out at the same time, and let's just say I knew how to play both of them, I'd probably pick this one over just because I like the theme more.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not huge into, like, I like sci-fi, but space, it's just like,
Yeah.
Like, this is more relatable, obviously, because these animals actually exist.
Right.
What about you?
If I was choosing one, I'm much more familiar with Terraforming Mars, so, like, I would... If I compared these two games together, I need to play this game more in order to get a better idea of it.
Yeah.
I currently slightly lean towards Terraforming Mars, and
Yeah.
I like sci-fi stuff pretty heavily, so I lean towards that theme. But I do like this theme a lot. I think it's well done.
Yeah. The one thing that they are missing is fun facts. Like, they do have a little, glossary thing for certain words or certain animals. And... I mean, so far, every time we've needed clarification, it's been there.
Yeah.
And it is on the cards, which is cool. I like the fact that these are color-coded to be like, oh, okay, well, what's that yellow? I know that's instant, but then it just immediately tells you what it is anyway.
Yeah.
Too many games are icon-only, and it's like, fuck, I'll figure it out.
Right.
Because whenever we had the one, bonus, I'm like, where is that? And then I was like, oh, here it is.
Yeah.
But I really wish, they had like the meadows where it was like, oh, this is number 506. Okay, let's look it up, and a little blurb about King Vulture.
Right.
Like, would be pretty neat. Like, this game warrants it a lot more than some others that I can think of. But yeah, this game definitely deserves the hype. But to go out of your way and say, Terraforming Mars is dog shit now. This game is... Oh my god, it's so good. It's like, no, it's really good, but you don't need to just throw away TM.
Yeah.
I think that's all I got. That's all I got. I can't really think about anything else. The box cover is all right. Like you said, this looked like a Jesus game.
Yeah.
Like, oh, it's Ark Nova. You're making it Ark.
The Jesus hand underneath.
Yeah.
I just noticed that.
I don't get it. It's not bad.
There's that new Ark game coming out. It's like Noah's Ark. Have you not seen
Not
that?
at all. Is it a board game?
Yeah, there's
no
like a
idea.
game where you have Noah's Ark.
Oh, wait a minute. I might have seen that.
And I was like, is this where we're going with this now? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, not that this is bad. This is kind of like PBS. Like, I imagine, like, this is an icon where it's like, bah, and then a circle, and then the animals are, like, they all roar, do their noise.
Yeah.
That's just what I kind of see with it. So the cover is not amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, on a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give Ark Nova?
Currently, I'd say like an 8.5.
8.5? Yeah, I am slightly higher. I am going to give it a 9.5. I'm going to give it very close to a 10. It's not a 10 because I do think that there is room for improvement. Mm-hmm. It's more that I just want more from the game because I really like it, but I can see, one, I want a dual-layered board. It's so stupid. Like, that was the biggest complaint with TM, and this is basically that game. Make the damn dual-layered board. But, besides that, I do think that they could, which they're going to do with expansions, different habitats, prelude, special abilities, more so than the map. Yeah. Which is still, I mean, that's a step in the right direction. Just versatility to where it's like, oh man, we have new universities this time, or different ways to kind of play the game.
Right.
So, room for improvement, but damn, this is a solid game. And that's our thoughts on Ark Nova. Let us know what you think of the game in the comments below. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you. Hey everyone, thank you for watching, and I really hope that you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see more of my content, go ahead and click that subscribe button and the bell to be notified whenever I upload any new content. If you feel like supporting the channel, you can go ahead and click that Patreon link to be taken to my Patreon, and any help is truly appreciated. Other than that, stick around for any other run-throughs or reviews or cool top 10s or whatever I feel like putting on. Other than that, like, comment, share, and subscribe, and have a wonderful whatever time of day it is for you.